All right, now let's do some fan questions.
Hi, Chael. This is Jacopo from Italy. I was thinking, what if Nate and Masvidal made an agreement? They both were lightweight and now they are welterweight. What if they decide between them to weigh in at 165 pounds so they could turn that belt in the inaugural belt for the 165 division? I think that if they did that, nothing could keep the promotion to open the new weight class. So my question basically is, how cool would that be? Thank you.
Okay, I get your question in principle. But in reality, look, there is no 165-pound division. And what would stop the organization from creating it, just not creating it? I mean, it would be as simple as that. They're doing something very special. They've made it a BMF title. Look, 165 pounds. I remember when all that talk started, there was a lot of guys that were saying they wanted to do it. Kevin Lee had even gone as far as to say he was going to weigh in at 165 and encourage his opponent to weigh in at 165. And I don't think that ended up happening. But you're right to bring up that dialogue. It was a very real thing. 165 doesn't solve as many problems as you might think, because 170 is right around the corner. So do we move 170 to 175, right? Is there two effects there? Is that a fair thing to do? Could you do it? Would you do it? Is there a history? I mean, it's a little bit weird. But I also like the idea of opportunity, and it wouldn't have to stop at 165. You could do a 195. You could do a 215. There used to be in wrestling a 220-pound weight class. That's where Kurt Angle came through. You guys might recall. So I'm all for opportunity. Any way you want to do it, any way you can create it. But 65 seems to be the one that has really stuck around with people. I'll tell you why it would not be a great idea. Masvidal is looking for a world title. Okay, I don't know that Nate is. I'm not positive what Nate wants to fight Masvidal for whatever reason. Nate wants to fight at Madison Square Garden. Nate has some things that he's getting that he wants, but Nate's sitting on an ace of spades, which is the trilogy match with Conor McGregor. So I don't know that Nate is looking to use this as a jumping off point to go in for, the winner of Colby or Kamaru. I don't know that he's not, but I don't know that he is. I do know for sure that Masvidal is. Masvidal doesn't, if it's Kamaru, if it's his teammate Colby, whatever, but he's looking to stay at 170 and work towards a world championship. So to ask a guy like him to cut an extra 5 pounds to try to prove some point in a division that simply doesn't exist, even if we'd like it to, I think you could see where his coaches and even himself would be a little underwhelmed to do that.
Hey, Chael. Me and my little brother were talking about MMA, and your career actually came up, and we were talking about how you were able to pretty much take down every opponent at will, and we were just wondering which one of your opponents had the best takedown defense.
Who had the most takedown defense? Well, when I fought Jon Jones, I never tried to take him down. I was on the defense. He was backing me up. So I never had that opportunity to try, but even without trying, I would imagine the answer would be Jon. From what I've seen on video, he looks like he's a really hard guy to take down. One guy that I could feel his strength was a guy named Yushin Okami, where when I would get in on his hips in a perfect position, takedown wasn't done. Most guys, you get to perfect position, I'm going to run him over. I'm going to lift him up. I'm going to put him in the I'm going to get him where I want him. And I can remember with Okami hitting his hips, and I mean, it was like a brick wall. I remember changing up, boom, I'd do everything right and blast him. And whoa, I could just feel this strength that was, in many ways, it would demobilize me. And I work through it and I go to something else, but I do remember, still to this day, this was 10 years ago, I do remember, boom, hitting him just the way I wanted to hit him and going, nothing happened.
Hey, Chael. I was just wondering, which do you think is the best gym for a young fighter to go to and train? Say if they're looking to start their MMA career and they want to start to the amateurs and go through the pros with one team, who do you think would be the best for a young fighter to start right now with? Thanks.
Okay, I still like some of the old school mentality if you're talking about a child. I don't support this for the pros, but I still do like the philosophy of a child, if you're talking, 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 years old, to go box over here and just box. And then maybe he wrestles with his school. His school's probably got a wrestling program. And then, if he can find somewhere to do jujitsu 2 nights a week. Something along these lines, and really build that base for a couple of years. Just with boxing, there's some real fundamentals that you need to learn that I'm not confident you could learn in just a straight MMA gym. Some of the real fundamentals and just even the learning of running the numbers so you can do the pad work and the mitt work, learn how to do the bag, get used to the jump rope. Some of those things I still like the old school mentality of separate it. Go box over here, wrestle with these guys, get some jiu-jitsu over here. Now, when that child gets a little bit older, the 14, 15, 17 range, if he could find a place to spar, and even if it was only once a week, but if he could find, say Saturdays, if he could go into an MMA room with say, guys that are similar in age and size and skill, or if they're not, guys that are very trustworthy. I don't want a child in there fighting, hating the sport, getting hurt, or looking to make somebody else hate the sport, or looking to hurt somebody else. The sport isn't overly fun, but I think if you can have that right control with a child, you could keep some of the funness, some of the fun. And I think that would be the best approach until he was a little later in life, to the 22 and 23, and then maybe we're having a different conversation.
What's up, Uncle Chael? I got a couple of questions for you. So first question, do you think Israel Adesanya is going to succumb to all the pressures to fight Jon Jones? Because if he beats Acosta, how could he not fight him, right? And two, what happens if Conor McGregor comes back and loses to Gaethje, or worse, loses to Edgar?
Well, so a couple things there. Yes, I believe that Adesanya would fight Jon Jones right now. It turns out that's not an option. It turns out he's fighting Costa, and it turns out that's an amazing contest. But if you're talking about a mentality or acting as though Israel's going to flinch, that's just not true. And that is not what has happened with anybody. Adesanya is not taking a backseat to anybody. He deserves credit for that. One of the hangups with the Jon Jones fight, look, I do think Adesanya is the better fighter. Many of you believe Adesanya to be the better fighter, but many of you don't. Okay, great. That's what makes us want to see them fight. It's one of the things that makes that special. We have this debate going on. Adesanya weighs 183 pounds. Adesanya has no fight coming up on the books. He is likely not fighting, even by rumor, until February of next year. Adesanya weighs 183 pounds. Right now. Adesanya is on vacation. Adesanya weighs 183 pounds. You need to know that. He is a welterweight. He is a tall frame. He's a young guy. That can change over time. He could fill out. But once he does, he'll fill out into about the size of an average middleweight, not into a light heavyweight. Now, that's not an excuse. I say that to you as a reason why I don't know that that match is going to get made. If that match gets made, that match has to get made at 205 pounds. Jon is a perfect 205-pounder. There's reasons he hasn't moved up to heavyweight. Well, he's not quite big enough. There's a reason he doesn't move down to middleweight. He's too big. Jon is the perfect size for 205 pounds. So it's Adesanya that would have to bump up. I think to ask a guy to bump up 22 pounds above what he even weighs, that's just what he weighs. He weighs 183 pounds. That's the one thing. Now, with time, yes, as human beings, we tend to gain weight. We tend to get a little bit bigger. If he wanted to get on a real heavy program and do some stuff like this, but that still takes a meaningful period of time. That still only gets him up to a little under 200, 198. He's still giving up a meaningful amount of size. I don't know that Adesanya gives a damn. I'm just sharing with you behind the scenes that is a real potential to slow that match down.
Uncle Chael, huge fan of the show, man. I just had a quick question for you. Do you think that Darren Till has what it takes to beat Kelvin Gastelum at UFC 244? I mean, not for nothing. We saw Gastelum out there against Adesanya, and he looked like a beast. I think this is going to be especially tough for Till after coming off with two brutal losses. So do you think he has what it takes to get it done? And if not, and Till happens to lose, then do you think it's time for Till to maybe look at packing up and retiring? Thanks, Chael.
Well, let me answer this in reverse because you're talking about my guy, Gastelum. So I'll answer it. Let me flip it for you. Gastelum has the skill to beat anybody. Period. The end. Gastelum was this close to being the world champion, and this fight wouldn't even be taking place. Gastelum was the true number one contender. Gastelum is today the true number one contender. When Gastelum and Till get done fighting, Gastelum is likely to fight Robert Whittaker to prove the point that he is the true number one contender, or give Whittaker the chance to prove, no, you're not. But that's how good Kelvin is. When you ask me about him taking on Till, Till's great. I don't have any notion there that he's not. He's also awkward, particularly on his feet, which is where Kelvin likes to fight fights. And one other thing about Till is there is some unknown coming into this. Till has always been a middleweight. He's been fighting at the wrong weight class. So this will be a better Till. This will be a full and hydrated, nutritional, balanced Till. So I do expect that he shows up and performs very well. But again, I want to answer it from a different perspective. Kelvin, for sure, Kelvin has the skill to beat anybody.
Hey, Chael, do you think the Bad Guys show can fit the largest arm in Doncaster, England on it? You do? Good. Well, let me pick your brain or something. What do you reckon the biggest super fight of 2020 would be? Do you think Jones versus Ngannou? Tony versus Khabib? Maybe Khabib versus Gaethje? Or what about Cejudo versus Nunes? Let me hear your thoughts.
I like everything you're saying. We'll do our best to get that bicep into the shot, but I will tell you, I think maybe you missed it. The biggest fight that's ever taken place, and both guys are still around, and I'm talking about Conor, I'm talking about Khabib. Generally, rematches do better than the original. That's a real thing in fighting. The original did a reported 2.4 million, which almost by 100% margin beats the next closest pay-per-view of all time. I'm throwing out UFC 100. I'm just throwing that one off. Those guys are still around. I do think that Conor comes back. I do believe that he comes back in January. I believe he's coming back against Cowboy Cerrone. Cowboy could throw him off track. Let's say he doesn't. And let's say that Tony doesn't throw off Khabib. Then you still got the title factor there. That would be a really mega fight. And depending on what happens in the BMF title, but Nate Diaz's star has never shined brighter. Nate Diaz versus Conor might be a very interesting look analytically. The analytics department's going to have to look at that. But Diaz versus Conor, or Conor versus Khabib, that would be my answer.
Hey, Chael. You spent the last couple of weeks telling us that we had a semifinal going on between Dominic Reyes and Chris Weidman, as well as Corey Anderson versus Johnny Walker. But let me offer you this. In a couple weeks, November 16th, we got Jacare versus Jan Blachowicz. Jacare, a guy coming up from 185 who recently has a win over Chris Weidman, versus Jan, who knocked out the former 185-pound champion Luke Rockhold. If he can get a win over Jacare, that puts him in a pretty prime position to be calling out Jon Jones as well. Let me know what you think of the possibility of that being a number one contender fight as well, and how you see that fight playing out.
Oh, I like that. I love parity. I love when you can offer me a match that I hadn't considered before. Jan is a tough guy, isn't he? And he should get some credit for beating Rockhold, a former champion. And he should get some credit if he gets past Jacare, who was a perennial number one contender for a meaningful period of time. I don't know, because don't forget, we're not just arguing who could do the best against Jon Jones. And we're not just arguing who's done the most to earn the shot with Jon Jones. We have a third component, which is who perceived by the audience, which really just means who do you want to see Jon face the most? Right, ultimately it comes down to that. Hey, fans, who do you want to see? And for whatever reason, who do you want to see Jon fight the most? So if Jan can insert himself into that conversation, good for him. I sure as hell wouldn't stop him from it. I think he's making a pretty good case, and a win over Jacare would add to that case. I do maintain that for now, Reyes is in the driver's seat, and the only person that could take that from him is Johnny Walker. Should Johnny Walker have a very impressive win over Corey Anderson, I'm not ready to predict for you that he does take the seat from Reyes. I am confident in telling you that for right now, he's the only one who could take it from Reyes.
Uncle Chill, Uncle Chill, there's no bad guy like Uncle Chill. Ain't never lost, not even a round. Undefeated, undisputed. Oh yeah, here comes the bad guy. Yeah, yeah, Uncle Chael.